I watched through the ranger station window as something with my face stepped out of the trees. My name's Carter Owens. I was hired as a forest ranger last fall. And this story isn't about wildlife. I'm 32. After years overseas, I wanted peace. The kind you only find in the woods. So when the job came up at Pine Ridge National Forest in northern Montana, I packed up and never looked back. They said it was seasonal, mostly isolation, weather reports, wildlife logs, helping campers who got too close to bears. I liked the sound of it. You know the feeling when you step into a place and just know something's different. Like the trees are watching, not swaying. The forest was vast. Endless pines stretching across cold ridges. Fog pooling between trunks like breath. The station was a single wooden cabin. No internet, no backup, and radio contact that cut out during storms. Which meant most nights, it was just me and the dark. I was okay with that. Until the rules came. There was a note taped to the wall above the radio. Faded and old, typed on yellow paper. Rules for Pine Ridge Station. Follow without question. Don't shine lights into the tree line after midnight. If you hear knocking on the cabin walls, don't answer. Never leave the station between 12:13 a.m. and 1:07 a.m. If you see your own face in the woods, shut your eyes. If someone calls for help, wait until dawn. I thought it was a joke. Maybe something left by the last ranger to freak out the new guy. But still, I took a photo of it, just in case. The first weird thing happened my third night. I was logging weather reports when I noticed the front door was unlocked. I never forget to lock it. Not after 2 tours overseas. Then, there was the footprint just outside. Only one. Bare. Human. I chalked it up to a hiker. Maybe lost. But the next night my boots were moved. Lined up perfectly by the door. Mud still fresh. Even though I hadn't left all day. The weirdest part, the camera trap I'd set up facing the trail had 23 photos. All pitch black. Except one, which showed me, standing in front of the cabin, smiling, but I hadn't gone out there. I told myself I was being paranoid. That isolation was getting to me, but I started to feel it. The presence, the thing that lives between the trees. On the 6th night, I heard it. A knock, just one, then another, not frantic, just steady, knock. Knock. I froze. It was 12:41 a.m. Rule number 2. Don't answer the knocks. I turned off the radio, killed the lights, sat there with my hand on my knife for what felt like hours. Eventually it stopped, but that wasn't the worst part. Not even close. The next morning, I found claw marks under the cabin windows. Inside, 2 nights later, I saw a light through the trees. A flashlight beam weaving slowly. "Help!" a voice called. "Please, I'm lost." It sounded like a kid. Maybe 10. I grabbed my jacket, opened the door, stepped out, and saw nothing. No light, no footsteps, just stillness. My breath fogged in the air. The voice came again, right next to my ear. "Help me." I slammed the door and didn't sleep that night. The voice never stopped whispering, all night long. It showed itself on the 9th night. I had fallen asleep at my desk. When I woke up, the cabin lights were off. The air was wrong, heavy, thick with something metallic. I stood up and looked out the window. There was me, standing 20 feet into the trees, staring back. Same uniform, same face, but its mouth, too wide. Its arms too long, and it was waving. Rule 4 screamed in my head. If you see your own face in the woods, shut your eyes. I turned, shut my eyes, and hit the ground. I heard my own voice outside whispering, "It's safe now, Carter. Come out. You can sleepwalk again." I didn't open my eyes for hours. When I did, it was gone. But something had left muddy handprints on the ceiling. The next night, I set up every camera I had, duct taped them to every tree within 50 feet. I sat inside, watching all of them from the laptop. At 12:13 a.m., every feed went black, except one. On that screen, I saw myself, inside the cabin, sitting, smiling, staring back through the camera lens. But I wasn't smiling. Then my radio crackled. "Carter, you left the door open again." I snapped. I grabbed the iron flare gun, bolted the cabin shut, and started burning anything that looked wrong. The boots, the photo, the old uniform. The whispers got louder. So loud I couldn't hear my own thoughts. Then I saw the original note again, the one with the rules. There was a sixth rule I hadn't seen before. If you survive until the 13th night, you must take its place. I tore it down, but it was too late. I ran out into the woods. No plan. Just one thought. Don't look behind you. I made it to the ranger outpost 15 miles west. I don't remember getting there. Just collapsing at the doorstep covered in mud and blood. They never found my cabin. I went back with a whole team the next morning. Nothing. No structure. No camera gear. Just pine trees. But that's not the worst part. 2 months ago, a new ranger was hired. Same post, same forest. They sent me his welcome photo in the staff email thread. He was standing in front of the cabin, the one that didn't exist. And in the window behind him, something was waving. And Pine Reach isn't the only place they mimic faces. Something walks at night in the old mines of Colorado too. If you've ever seen something in the trees that looked just a little too human, drop A in the comments. But Pine Reach wasn't the only forest keeping secrets. In the swamps of Louisiana, something knocks from under the water. You know the feeling, when everything around you is alive, but somehow it still feels like you're the only one being watched. It was August, one of those suffocating southern summers when the air turns syrup thick and the humidity clings like a second skin. I'd taken a contract job through the state's Wetlands Recovery Initiative. Decent pay, long hours, and one goal: clear out Chinese tallow trees from deep marsh territory. We'd bowed out at dawn with chainsaws, machetes, and bug spray. No cell reception, no real help if something went wrong. But I was fine with that. I grew up in Baton Rouge. I knew the land could be wild, but never imagined it could feel wrong. Until day 3. The next morning, I noticed our boat had moved. Not drifted, moved. Tied off one way, turned the opposite. Rope still secure, like it had been lifted. Later, clearing vines, I found bones. Not animal bones, fingers. 5, clean, bone white, and still joined by cartilage. I threw them back in the water. Told myself they were fake, swamp voodoo, some sick prank, but I knew better. When I radioed my field supervisor, I got static. Then a voice I didn't recognize whispered, "You already knocked." I hadn't said anything. That evening, it got worse. Beneath our canoe, we heard tapping. Knock, 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 and when we stopped paddling, it kept going, like it was waiting. But that wasn't the worst part, not even close. 2 nights later, we were anchored in the center of a flooded cypress grove. The water was flat like oil. My partner Eric was sleeping. I couldn't. I kept hearing something circling. Then I saw the face, pale, swollen, just beneath the waterline, staring up, unblinking. I screamed. The first thing I noticed was how quiet it got. In a swamp, silence doesn't exist. There's always something. Frogs, bugs, birds, wind. But that morning, all of it stopped. Not a ripple, not a croak. Just a dead hush. Then came the footprints. Human-sized, barefoot, deep impressions on the muddy bank, headed into the water. But there were no other boats, and I hadn't seen a soul for hours. Later, I found our fuel can tipped over and dragged 10 feet. It could have been a raccoon, I told myself. That night at camp, I heard splashing. Heavy, rhythmic splashing. I walked out with my flashlight. The water was still, and then I saw it. Something big moving just beneath the surface. I aimed the beam and caught a shape. Not a gator. Bigger, pale. It sank before I could focus. I told myself it was stress, dehydration. But I slept with the machete that night. Eric bolted upright, and the face vanished. We lit the water with flashlights, but it was gone. Then, near the tree line, we saw it rise. A soaked, half-naked man, grey skin, hollow eyes, moving as if every joint had broken and rehealed wrong. He didn't walk, he shuffled through the water, one dragging leg behind him. Etched into his chest were deep scars. Letters, K-N-O-C-K. We paddled fast, but the knocking followed us. Under the boat, under our skin. We reached land, barely. As we pulled the canoe ashore, the water boiled. Dozens of bubbles, then fists, pale hands, slamming from beneath the surface. I ran. Eric tripped. I turned back, grabbed his arm, and we made it to the truck. As we drove off soaking wet, he gasped and looked down. 4 bruises across his shin, shaped like fingers. He thought we escaped, but 2 hours later, Eric's phone buzzed. Voicemail, from his own number. Back at the ranger station, we played the voicemail on speaker. It was muffled, but clear enough. You knocked. Now, knock back. Eric started coughing up swamp water the next day. By then, I was already driving north, away from the coast, away from the trees, from the water. I tried to forget it, but last week I had a dream. I was back in that boat, and I was the one under the water. When I woke up, my feet were soaked. My sheets smelled like swamp water. And there, on my bedroom wall, scratched into the paint, K-N-O-C-K. I don't work outdoors anymore. I don't live near water, but sometimes I hear it under the floorboards, in the pipes, in the silence before sleep. Knock, knock, knock. And every time, I don't answer. But I know one day I will. And when I do, something will answer back. And this wasn't the first time something rose from the water. Ask anyone who's been to Pine Reach. The forest always answers. Eventually. If you've ever heard a knock and no one was there, drop it in the comments. But the swamp wasn't the only place that remembered. In rural Kentucky, a girl moved into a farmhouse where no mirrors would reflect her face. I smashed every mirror in the house, but in the shards, my reflection kept smiling back. This story begins in rural Kentucky, where I took a job I thought would be a fresh start. You know that feeling, when something feels wrong, but you can't explain it. Like a draft that touches your neck, even with the windows closed. After my divorce, I needed space, physically and emotionally. So when I saw the listing for a century-old farmhouse, dirt cheap and nestled in the hills outside Pikeville, I didn't hesitate. It was just me, my dog, Jasper, and a place to start over. The town was small, welcoming enough. Everyone seemed to know something I didn't. The old man who handed me the house keys wouldn't meet my eyes. He just muttered, "Don't cover the windows." The house smelled like cedar and old paper. It creaked, but in that cozy way, at first. But I noticed it on day one. The mirror in the bathroom didn't show my face. At first, I thought it was just an old mirror. But the one in the hallway didn't reflect me either. Just the room behind me. Empty. I ordered a new mirror online. It arrived in perfect condition, but when I set it on the dresser, still no reflection. Jasper wouldn't go upstairs anymore. He'd sit at the foot of the steps, growling. I started waking up at odd hours. One night, 3:17 a.m. exactly, I found the living room lights on. I never leave those on. Then the dream started. A woman draped in lace with no face. She stood in front of a cracked mirror, her fingers scratching at the glass until they bled. I woke up screaming. Jasper was howling at the closet. I told myself I was stressed, isolated, healing, that mirrors could be faulty, that dreams were just stress, until I saw the photo. It was an old family photo taped to the back of the pantry door. A couple from the 1930s standing in front of the same house, and right behind them, a girl, no face. I took the photo into town. The local librarian said the house had a reputation. Used to be a funeral home. That room you sleep in, that was the embalming room. The next day, all the windows were covered in condensation. I wiped one clean and saw writing on the outside. "Don't look at her." Jasper wouldn't stop barking at the mirror in the attic. I hadn't even gone up there yet. When I did, I found a trunk full of shattered mirror shards and a journal. It belonged to a girl named Elsie, dated 1934. She wrote, "Mama says if I see my face again, she'll lock me away. But I hear her calling me through the glass." That night I caught movement, not in the room, but in the mirror above the sink. A pale figure passed behind me. When I turned, nothing, but the mirror still showed her. I screamed. Cliffhanger line. But that wasn't the worst part, not even close. I set up my phone to record while I slept. The next morning, the footage made my stomach drop. At 3:17 a.m., I sat up. My eyes were wide open, but I was still asleep. Then, I walked to the hallway mirror and smiled, but my reflection stayed behind, watching, grinning. I started hearing it every night. A soft tapping, like fingernails on glass. Then the whispering started. "Come see yourself. Come see yourself." I covered the mirrors. Every single one. But the voice, it found other ways. It started whispering from water, from my phone screen, even from Jasper's eyes. There was no escaping her. One night the mirrors were uncovered again, every one of them. I stood in the center of the hallway, mirrors on each wall. And there she was, in all of them. No face. Just long black hair, twitching like static. I turned, but no one was there. Then, the mirrors started cracking one by one, from the inside. I ran outside, but my phone buzzed. A new voicemail, from my own number. I listened to the voicemail. It was me, but not my voice. "I see you now. You can't leave. I'm in your eyes." I called the old librarian. She finally told me Elsie's mother was part of some backwoods faith. She believed mirrors trapped sin, that your reflection was the devil's leash. Elsie had lost her face when she disobeyed. They say she burned alive in that house, trying to smash the last mirror. I smashed mine too, all of them, but it was too late. Jasper stared at me now like he didn't recognize me. I barely recognized myself either. I moved out, left Kentucky, try to start over again, but the mirrors still don't show me. And worse, they still show her. She's closer now. Every day, smiling. I don't know who I am anymore, but she does. They say mirrors are just glass and silver, but in Red Bluff, the boy in the well said his reflection walked out first. If you've ever seen something behind you in the mirror that wasn't there when you turned around, drop me in the comments. But Harper's mirrors weren't the only ones that lied. In northern Nevada, a child heard knocking inside his walls, and it was coming from below the floorboards. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard my own voice whispering back. This story begins in Red Bluff, Nevada, where I thought I'd found a quiet place to heal. You know that feeling when silence isn't comforting but oppressive, like the house is holding its breath, waiting for something. After the unsettling experiences in Kentucky, I needed distance. The desert's emptiness seemed like the perfect escape. I rented a remote cabin, miles from the nearest neighbor. The air was dry, the nights silent. But the walls, they seemed to listen. The first night, I heard faint whispers. I dismissed it as wind, but the next day, I noticed words etched into the wall behind the bookshelf. I see you. I started recording the sounds. Playback revealed voices, my voice, saying things I never remembered. Jasper, my loyal dog, growled at the walls, refusing to enter certain rooms. I found an old diary beneath the floorboards. Entries spoke of echoes and voices that remember. The previous tenant wrote about dreams that weren't hers and memories that didn't belong. The whispers grew louder, more distinct. They spoke of events from my past, secrets I'd never shared. Mirrors in the house began to fog, revealing fleeting images of places I'd never been. One night, I awoke to find the walls bleeding ink, forming words, "Return what was taken." I contacted the local historian, who revealed the cabin was built atop an old communication outpost, rumored to have experimented with sound-based memory storage. The technology was abandoned, but some believe the walls still listened. But that wasn't the worst part, not even close. I set up cameras to capture the phenomena. Footage showed me sleepwalking, speaking in tongues, and interacting with unseen entities. One frame captured a shadowy figure emerging from the wall, its form shifting with static. The whispers became demands, urging me to complete the circle and release the echoes. Desperate, I followed the voices to a hidden room behind the fireplace. Inside, a reel-to-reel recorder played a loop of my voice, recounting events from the Kentucky farmhouse and the forest ranger incident. I realized then, the stories were connected and I was the thread. Sudden silence, distant wind, a faint giggle. I confronted the entity, demanding answers. It revealed itself as a manifestation of collective memories, feeding on forgotten stories and unresolved traumas. The mirrors, the voices, the reflections, all tools to lure and trap narratives. To break free, I had to let go of my past, burning the diary and destroying the recorder. The cabin trembled, the walls screamed, and then silence. I left Red Bluff, seeking normalcy, but the stories lingered. In every mirror, I saw glimpses of the past. Whispers followed me, reminding me that some stories never end. I became the story, and now, so have you. They say stories are just words, but in the right place, with the right listener, they become reality. If you've ever felt like your walls were listening, drop a shield in the comments.